Welcome to another episode of Steel Creek Explorer. I'm your host, Jeremy Stout, and I know the landscape behind me looks awfully dreary and looks awfully bleak, but come with me today and we're going to find some of the earliest signs of the warmer months. We're going to spring from winter. Well, we are fresh into daylight savings time, and that's a time when many of us think of as being between two seasons, kind of the tail end of winter and the very beginning of spring. Well, of course, daylight savings time is a human-made construct. It doesn't exist in nature. But our seasons very much depend on the cycles of nature, and including the position of our own planet in space. Of course, we already know, I hope, that our seasons are dictated by the wobble of the Earth on roughly an annual basis. So along our Earth's north-south axis, in the northern hemisphere, our summer is when the Earth is tilted towards the sun. And that gives us increased amounts of daylight because more of the Earth is facing towards the sun, and also a little bit more warmth because we're a little bit closer. And as we move into winter, the Earth actually tilts away from the sun, or at least the northern hemisphere tilts away from the sun. And that's what gives us our less amounts of day length, and of course also our colder temperature with that. So here we are, our planet is moving back towards its wobble towards the sun. We're getting close to the spring equinox. And so nature is responding to that. Some plants and animals respond to outside temperatures. Many still also respond to the relative amounts of daylight that are shining on our portion of the planet. So we're going to get outside, we're going to get into the park, and we're going to see if we can find some of those lingering signs of winter and maybe some early signs of spring. Have to travel far to find some of our very first harbingers of spring. For those who hate the winter, oftentimes they look to the daffodils as their first sign of hope for the warmer months. Daffodils are indeed some of our earliest bloomers. They're a common garden plant that have become naturalized in much of our region. And oftentimes the green parts of the daffodils will actually come up as early as January when conditions are right. And they are some of the earliest bloomers. They'll be blooming in March or even February. Wow, we've made it into some pretty deep woods here. We're back into Hemlock Hollow, and we found one of my favorite species. It's not really what I would call a winter species, and it's not even what I would call an early spring species. I have found one of those species that we almost only ever see right on the cusp between the two seasons. And of course, I'm talking about these beautiful little mushrooms right here. These are called scarlet cup fungi. Sometimes they're called scarlet elf cups. And you can see how they get their name. They have this vibrant, rich red color on the inside, and they're cup-shaped, the fruiting bodies. These right here you find, they're helping decay especially hardwoods that are on the forest floor, branches and logs of primarily beeches and hawthorns and a few other species of tree. We've got lots of beeches in this forest right here. So these right here, of course, they're alive all year round, but they send up these fruiting bodies, the scarlet cup that gives the fungus its name, pretty much only in the last couple of weeks of February or the first couple of weeks of March. And just as quickly as they're up, it seems, they're gone back below the ground again. So to find one of these is a very special experience. Well, here is a sign of some warmer months to come. I'm not sure if you can see him there yet. We have found a friend cruising around on the forest floor. Let's take a look. This right here is a myriapode, better known as a millipede. Come on up, buddy. All right, this is one of my favorite millipedes that calls Steel Creek Park home. Oftentimes these guys go by the name cherry millipede, or sometimes people call them almond millipede. You might be squirming in your chair at home, horrified. These little guys are not venomous, but they are poisonous. They're detritivores, which means they cruise around in the leaf litter and they eat the soil and the dead and decaying organic matter. They're totally harmless to people unless you were to eat them. These guys are poisonous. They don't want to be eaten like most animals. And so for predators that are hunting by sight, they have this row of bright yellow or orange, or they can even have red spots. But then they also have something for the predators that are trying to find their prey by smell. They emit hydrogen cyanide, which of course we know is a very poisonous substance, but it also smells strongly of cherries or almonds. So sometimes when they feel threatened, they'll emit that smell, which lets potential predators know not to eat them. Can you smell them at home? Now I want to point out that if this were a centipede, a related kind of arthropod, I would not be picking it up and handling it in my hand. So a lot of our millipedes are poisonous. Our centipedes, many of them are venomous, and they do pose a threat to people, some of them. All right, well, you don't have to rely on flower buds and fruiting bodies of mushrooms. You don't even have to identify any species of plants or animals or fungi. Sometimes just the behavior of animals tells us what season it is. Canada geese are known for being a territorial species, sometimes at any time of the year, but especially during the early parts of the breeding season. This is a time when Canada geese get especially territorial and hostile towards each other. They haven't actually built any nests yet, they haven't laid any eggs, but they have paired up for the breeding season, and neighborly disputes like this one are becoming a lot more common. Thank you so much for coming along with me today. I know a lot of us have our favorite seasons, or maybe many of us have seasons that are our absolute unfavorites. But remember that we live on a dynamic planet and in a region that is full of biodiversity and things to discover in every season. And some of the best times to find a lot of our local wildlife are times like now, these in-between seasons, where you can find vestiges of winter still hanging on, and you can find plenty of signs of the spring to come, like the Bradford pears behind me. Don't like those trees very much, but they are pretty this time of year. But whatever season it is, be sure to come out to Steel Creek Park, because here's where you can be the explorer.